my love for hair started at 13. And I was obsessed with fashion. And it all goes back to the availability of looking at Vogue magazine like a Bible, and also looking at all the credits and knowing like Jean Shrimpton, Verushka on the covers or in the pages, and they would be on a trip and they would all look a certain way. And then the next month they'd have short hair. And I'd be like, how the hell did that happen? Because the following month they'd have long hair. I used to be obsessed with black and white film. My family always loved Hitchcock movies. We went to see Marilyn Monroe movies. We went to see Elizabeth Taylor movies. That was what we did on the weekends. Yeah. And my obsession was because my mother had the body of all these young women, and she had the Queen Elizabeth hairstyle. And I said, I don't want my mom to look like that. So I would tease it up. Jackie Kennedy was a huge influence. Camelot was a huge influence. Right. And then all the glorious moments that she had Alexandra or Kenneth do her hair when she was in Paris. She started wearing Valentino and Dior and Balenciaga, all of these designers. And I loved it. It's so glamorous.
I'm Jill Demling, and this is Going Rogue. Today's guest is Garren, the last great salon king and one of the most influential hairstylists in fashion history. For 5 decades, he's shaped the way women look, move, and imagine themselves. From Farrah Fawcett's transformation that changed America to Linda Evangelista's endless reinventions. Before the runways, before the supermodels, he was the kid in Niagara Falls who turned a basement into a salon and taught himself glamour straight from the pages of Vogue. By the mid-70s, he'd landed at Bergdorf Goodman, where the salons fed the magazines and the magazines made legends, and that's exactly what happened. Garren became a fixture at Vogue, collaborating with Penn, Avedon, Bill King, Patrick Demarchelier, and for 20 years an exclusive creative partner to Steven Meisel. More than 1,000 covers later, Garren isn't just a hairstylist. He's a historian, a guardian of craft, and one of the architects of how fashion looked and felt for half a century. This episode is about discipline, instinct, reinvention, and the invisible language between a photographer and the person who builds the hair. It's time to comb through 5 decades of fashion history with the man who styled it, as Garren goes rogue. Hi. How are you?
I'm good. Good.
I've heard your name so much from Stephen Klein.
Oh, yes.
It's just so funny doing this. Obviously, I'm not getting anything out of it other than a lot of knowledge and respect and appreciation for all of you. But what I've also learned is how much the photographers respect you. Him talking about you, there's that real understanding of this, everyone's artists, and there's not just like a hierarchy, but like a legendary status. You know what I mean?
Well, I think also when you came into the world of Vogue, you also came in at a time that was your time. So things had changed from my time.
Right.
Or Mr. Penn's time, or Mr. Avedon's time, or Polly Mullen's time, because they weren't relevant anymore. It became who was relevant when you walked in the door.
Right.
So you were visiting shoots and doing things that basically honed you from that point on.
Right.
And the sad thing about the Vogue world is that it did start decades and decades and decades way back.
Right.
And when you go through the history of Vogue and how it changed through the decades, Vreeland was before Polly, and there was always someone that was left to rule,
right.
Not to rule, but
I see what you mean.
Like you leave over and then you get into the new group and you're still in the new group, but you're not. You have all those references from before. And I was
Absolutely.
thinking about how our conversation was going to go. And I just thought, I'm going to talk about from the beginning of what made me want to be in Vogue or be a Vogue hairdresser.
Yeah, so I do scripts. And actually, Stephen Klein, because it's funny, I'll just tell you, like, Stephen Klein is someone that I can remember on shoots. I'm trying to keep the publicist away.
Yeah,
A.
that I know, and I get that.
And B, there was no minute for me, or many different reasons, but to even be taking in what was around me, right? So it was being ready for every little thing, and especially being told I have to get people off set. Like was the most stressful thing, how to manipulate that situation.
Well, also, but you were also working with the editor that was doing the shoot. So they were in charge of the room that we were all in and talking. You were, as you said, in the publicist, like keeping them going, and then have to try to delegate what the publicist is telling you, that they don't want the hair to look like that. They don't want the makeup to look like that. They don't want the clothes to look like that. And you're like, let's let them work through it, you know?
Yeah.
And then their celebrity, they get to their ear, and their celebrity is telling them, well, I don't know if I want to look like this. I don't know if I want to do that. And it's like, before all of that of your time, there was a moment in life when they were honored to be photographed for Vogue. And that they knew the team that was coming was going to create them as a Vogue image. And it could launch their career even further.
Right.
But that,
no, it's true.
But through Anna embracing the celebrity moment, it sort of watered down the power that we had as a team.
Oh, for sure. And then with Stephen Klein, like on sets, you know, he was, not that I ever exchanged a word, or that Stephen myself even knows I exist on this planet, but that never happened. But with Stephen Klein, I always felt I had a negative feeling towards him based on how he was on set. And now that I'm helping him with something, which is the first, he said to me, like, I don't know if we've ever met. I'm like, we've met 1,000,000 times, but I've learned we talk every day, you know, and I can now look back at those experiences, and through researching him, like I did you, like I am doing Nick Knight, I do a lot, as much as I can find. So I can now see I had misread. I could only read a room by the energy I'm feeling, but that energy wasn't personal, right? It was a whole...
No, it is not. It is definitely about the slice of the pie that you're in.
Yes. So it's been very interesting. And listen, I wish I could have... There's no way to know if...
Well, you don't know.
Yeah, but if myself back there could look and be like, oh my God, Mary, that's amazing. Or even be present. There's no version. Nothing about magazines is present anyway. You're always looking next. And each situation is, if I have Stephen Huvane on set, I'm talking about the next client I can get for the next. So this has been really...
Then there is publicists that know us, meaning the hair, like Stephen.
Yeah.
Okay. And then there's other ones that they know once their artist is put in the hands of this group, they kind of tell the celebrity, chill, kid, because you're getting photographed by so-and-so, and it's not going to be terrible. You might not understand it, but it's going to be another growing experience.
Yeah. No, it was very challenging for me. I came from, you know, CAA. So, and everyone says I'm talent first. And I think that's also because when you think about numbers, like the talent on set is just one person, and it's just managing and having people trusting me that I'm protecting them as well. But I can see the shift, and I could see at the time, I learned as I went how important these people were in the fashion industry. And I remember Anna saying, with Mr. Penn in particular, anyone he wants to shoot, like she knew.
It was a special
Yeah. And
moment.
people like, and he wanted Clint Eastwood, and the people I was reaching out to could have given a shit. And that frustrated me.
They don't know, the agents don't know who
I know
he is. Agents don't know who I am because it's all young kids and all they do is know the window.
That's what we're going to talk about. I have that in here too, because it's
a window.
Yeah.
I always, as a child, wanted, because I lived in Niagara Falls. Let's put it this way. Vogue and Harper's Bazaar were my Bibles.
Well, let's
the age of 12.
Yeah, let's get to, because I have all that in here.
And the picture behind me is Stephen Klein's horse.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's like he doesn't even know how major he is. I'm like, he does. I think he's acting different with me because we both have 10-year-olds. He's like, I feel like we're married. I'm like, this is so weird. But that to me is major. When people are like, oh, are you starstruck? I was more nervous to talk to him on the phone than any celebrity. So it's always
I think he is very open and he knows the time and the place and he wants to be relevant. You would never get Mizell on the phone ever. No. Or allowed in the room.
Of course. I would never.
And I was always like, I spent decades with Mizell and I would be like, this is like a little cult, a little world, but he gets to create.
Yeah.
The same thing was like with Mr. Penn. I mean,
well, hold all of this because we have a section.
So let's go. Let's go for it.
Okay. Garren, over 5 decades, you've created some of the most iconic hair moments in fashion history. Farrah's transformation that made headlines, Linda Evangelista's endless reinventions, Victoria Beckham's Pixie, Carly's Bob. You've run legendary salons, co-founded R&Co, and been the architect behind runway hair for Anna Sui, Marc Jacobs, and Valentina for decades. But this is a podcast about magazines. And when it comes to magazines, your credits are extraordinary. Over 1,000 covers spanning 5 decades, from your first Vogue shoot with Christy Brinkley in the mid-'70s to your work now. You've collaborated with Irving Penn, Richard Avedon, Bill King, Patrick Demarchelier, among many others, and shared a 20-year exclusive creative partnership with Steven Mizell. You came up during the golden era of New York hairstylists, arriving at Bergdorf Goodman in 75, where Christian was already working. Julien Dice would arrive a decade later. It was a time when the big salons, Kenneth, Vidal Sassoon, Bergdorf, Bendel, fed the magazines, and the magazines made the salons famous. You were part of this ecosystem where hairstylists weren't just technicians. You were artists, collaborators, credited contributors to the greatest fashion photography of all time. Here are a few of my favorite things you've said over the years. Everything that was historical about Linda Evangelista's hair was done in my chair. It's not about the haircut per se. It's about the look that the girl owns, who they believe they are, knowing the right time and place to do something new. It was always for the picture, not because I wanted to make a statement. So before we rewind to how it started, I want to begin where I've started with a few other hair legends who've been on the podcast. Julien Dice, Orlando Pita, Christian. When you think about what you do, what do you consider yourself, a hairdresser, a hairstylist, or a hair artist, and why? Do you think there's a real difference between them in responsibility, ego, or creative freedom?
I think I always considered myself a hairdresser, hairstylist. A hairstylist, I guess, is a little more sophisticated. But my love for hair started at 13. I was plucked into New York because I met Christian in the late 60s.
Yep.
And back then, we helped each other. He saw my talent, and I asked him, I says, how do I get to meet the people that I need to meet? And he said, come to the beauty show, the New York Hair Show, and I will introduce you to some people. And then from that time, I went to New York. I did meet up with Christian, and he introduced me to John and Suzanne Chadwick, who were the creative directors of Glenby International. And Glenby owned Bergdorf Goodman, Kenneth, all the big department stores, Neiman Marcus, Harrods, all around the world. And I became one of the artists that worked for Glenby International, and they placed me in Bergdorf Goodman. And at that time, Christian had just left Bergdorf. They were remodeling it. I went in, and through Christian, and I'm going to back up just a second.
Yeah, because can I give the listeners just this background?
Yeah,
okay.
Go on.
Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. You grew up in Niagara Falls, a working class family in a house that wasn't remotely fashion, as you said, except for one thing, your mother's subscriptions to Vogue and Harper's Bazaar. You said, I would go through my mother's magazines, Vogue and Harper's Bazaar, all the time. My mother had premature gray hair starting in her 30s and at a young age looked like my grandma. So I started styling her hair at 13, teasing, brushing out, giving her that Jackie Kennedy look. It instantly got noticed. Suddenly, all of my mother's girlfriends had me doing their hair. At 16, I was styling all the girls in high school. At that point, you were self-taught, copying looks straight out of the magazines, even studying the credits. Quote, I was mesmerized by how the models 1 month would have long hair and the next month short hair. It was transformative. I started noticing names, Kenneth, Alexander of Paris. These were the hairstylists working with the great photographers. Your father saw your obsession and built a mini salon in the basement. He said, why don't we do a little setup for you in the basement? We'll do a shampoo sink and appointments on the hour. I said, okay, and started working every weekend. My parents were brilliant. You were booked solid using grocery store hair booklets that featured Kenneth and Vidal Sassoon looks, following these instructions, as you said, religiously. Then came 10th grade and the guidance counselor. I told him I wanted to be a hairdresser. He said, only girls do hairdressing. Men don't do that. He called my father in, and my father said, excuse me, my son is very good at what he does. He's going to be a hairdresser, and you're going to read about him someday. You said my heart fell out. I thought, oh my God, my dad stuck up for me. You went to beauty school at night, got your license, and by 16, you were fully booked. My mother was my receptionist. I was doing falls, wiglets, hair pieces, teasing, glamorous hair. They'd sleep in it for a week. That same year, you entered your first competition in Buffalo and won first place. That's where I met Christian, who was one of the judges. He introduced me to the team at Glenby Salons, who made me style director at their salon in Buffalo. They wouldn't bring me to New York right away. I had to prove myself first. Let's stop there. Okay. So hopefully
You
that's...
did it well. You did
yeah.
Very well. Very
okay.
well.
So through all my conversations I've had on this podcast, I've realized most of my guests knew early on what they wanted to do, but few actually did it that young. You weren't dreaming about becoming a hairstylist someday. You were already one. And your family wasn't just supportive, they were all in. So let's go back to that time. You said you became obsessed with hair at 10. Do you remember when and how? And what was that basement salon? I mean, it's amazing. And when I've talked to Orlando, Julian, and Christian, none of them can pinpoint why hair. I don't know, because it could have been anything, but it was hair.
It was hair, and it was also fashion, because I was obsessed with fashion. And it all goes back to the availability of looking at Vogue magazine like a Bible, and Harper's Bazaar, and also looking at all the credits and knowing like Jean Shrimpton, Verushka, and all them were on the covers or in the pages, and they would be on a trip and they would all look a certain way. Then the next month they'd be in the magazine and they'd have short hair. And I'd be like, how the hell did that happen? Because the following month they'd have long hair. So then I started thinking, and I used to be obsessed with black and white film. I grew up when the TV was black and white. So I was watching all these movies, and we always loved Hitchcock movies. We went to see Marilyn Monroe movies. We went to see Elizabeth Taylor movies. My family that was what we did on the weekends. Yeah. And my obsession was because my mother had the body of all these young women and she had the Queen Elizabeth hairstyle. And I said, I don't want my mom to look like that. So I would tease it up. Jackie Kennedy was a huge influence. Camelot was a huge influence.
Right.
Because I was a teenager.
Yeah.
And then all the glorious moments that she had Alexandra or Kenneth do her hair when she was in Paris or where she was traveling. And you got to remember, it was not even 2 years that she was there.
Right.
But her legacy kept going.
Yeah, Julian talks about her.
She started wearing Valentino and Dior and Saint Laurent, I mean, Balenciaga, all of these designers. And it was like, I loved it. And
when you went,
it was just so glamorous.
But with your mom, were you just like, hey, Mom, I have an idea? And she was like, go for it. Like the first time.
No, the first time was like for the first 6 months, my mom would come back from the hairdresser and I would be like, why are they doing your hair like that? And she'd like, but this is what they do. And it started to register that she had gray hair. And then she would take me to the beauty salon with her.
Yeah.
And I would tell her hairdresser, can you give her this flip? Like, I'd like to see her hair look
like 10, 11.
And like 11.
Oh my
11 years
God.
old.
That is...
And the girl, the hairdresser, enjoyed me being there.
Yeah.
And she would then create something that Liz Taylor would wear.
You were like the Bobby Fischer of hair.
Whatever. I mean, and then it got to the point where I said to my mom, I said, you know, I could start cutting your hair and doing your hair. And she says, well, okay, try. So like back then in the 60s, the women used to go to the hairdresser every 2 weeks or once a month to get a haircut, but they would go every week or every 2 weeks to get it set and styled. And I wasn't happy with the one girl she was going to, so she switched over to one that I was observing in the same salon. Now we're talking Niagara Falls.
But this is wild. You know this is wild, right? That you had this, I mean, that it's natural. It
was what it was meant to be.
Yeah, of course.
And also I would look at all Sharon Tate and Audrey Hepburn and
oh my God.
and Catherine Deneuve and all of them. And it was just like, oh, I want it all. And I would read that there was falls available. I got my older brother to buy a wig salon so that I had falls, wigs, hair pieces, and everything available to me. He had no idea why he was buying it, but he was doing it because it was going to give him a business in making wigs for women that had cancer or whatever, but also men that were bald. Because back then, anyone that was bald wanted a toupee, and he would lock the market in for making toupees, hand-tied toupees for men. But on the small end of it, in the back of his space, he also, after I moved on, he built me a little beauty salon that my mother encouraged him to do. And I started doing hair there. And she was the receptionist. Like you said.
Yeah.
So then when I met Christian, because I was obsessed, I was like 16, I wanted to do hair competition. So I would get the girls in there, and it was all by accident. Like I would create something and I'd have an idea. I would see what Gina Lollobrigida wore at a premiere that was in the paper, or how Catherine Deneuve's hair was, or any Bardot. I mean, all of them. And I would just create these images because hairdressing in Kenneth was in New York. And I was just so obsessed with the looks.
But question, how did you figure out, okay, to make it, I don't know.
Okay, that's the books, the little books that they used to have in the grocery store. They were about this big.
Oh, got it.
And it would have Kenneth, and it would show the finished picture. Then it would show the set. Like pin curls on the bottom, rollers on the top. So I would find that set, and the girl or the woman that was coming to me that had that length hair. And I would style her hair like that, and I would copy it. And I learned how to tease and do all that. Then Sassoon came into the picture. And so you had a Kenneth book and you had a Sassoon book.
Yeah.
And you had the geometrics.
Right.
So I started cutting the geometrics, self-taught.
Yeah.
I knew the hair had to fall down. I knew it had to hit the neck. I knew the front had to be longer. I knew the bang had to go over one eye. It was like, it was more visual training.
Yeah.
And landing it and then taping the nape down and putting a couple rollers at the crown, putting them under the dryer, then brushing it out and teasing it, kind of Sassoon-y, but a Kenneth Buffon, but it was Sassoon. Because we didn't have blow dryers back then. We only had hooded dryers back in the 60s.
Wild.
So no flat irons. You had Marcel irons. But we were moving out of that. We were doing the voluminous hair.
Right.
I had attached falls, hair pieces that I would set on 6 rollers, wet set, and whether it would flip or it would be all
like if that happened today, there'd be viral videos of you.
Yeah, but it would
at that age doing all of this.
I guess. I mean, I guess, but I was so into it. I breathed it. I ate. I slept it. I was so amazed by the way a woman walked down the street and how she looked. And I came from an Italian family, and the women all wanted to look very much like Sophia Loren. So here I was mimicking Sophia Loren. And
the family, your family.
Verna Lisa. And my one aunt would be Gina Lollobrigida. I would put characters on them.
Oh my God.
Very much so like you do for a photograph when you work with Klein or you work with Mizell. You pull from references that young hairdressers don't have right now. They do not have the past. They are in the present.
Yes.
So at that point, I knew I had to go to beauty school to get some kind of foundation.
Right.
It wasn't a problem, but I had to wait till I was 16 to go because they wouldn't take me at 13. So my sister and my aunt decided they were going to take me to beauty school. So they both got their beauty license.
So they were all like, Garren is, I mean, it's...
We're taking Garren to beauty school and we're going to get our license too, so that we're all 3 going to do hair. But Garren is going to be the one that's always going to do my hair.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they all knew, and even your brother, he wouldn't have gotten into any sort of toupee stuff if it wasn't.
Well, no, he was a
for
sales
you,
rep.
Right?
No, he did it because he knew he was bald and he wanted a toupee, and he was 30 years old.
Right.
So he didn't want to look old.
But you made hair. They all saw that you.
But you're
had
talking
talent.
a small town, a little Italian neighborhood that had all these women that were basically your age and younger.
Yeah.
And they had 2 children and they wanted to look like the magazines.
Right. And they had this
and
wonder
they had these wonder little bodies, and they would wear pencil skirts and high heels, because that was a generation of women that high heels was a thing, that they would go nowhere without a high heel. They couldn't walk in flats.
Right. Right.
So that was the girl thing, like girl being a girl. Now I meet Christian. I win the contest. My ex-wife was my model. And we had started going to New York, and she was buying her clothes at Kamali, and she was buying them at Bendel's, back the old Bendel's. That was in the 60s. And so whatever she wore, it was very New York, and it was very the moment.
Right.
So I created this curled, extravagant hairstyle, and it was completely a different vibe than what all the other hairdressers were doing. And Christian, I just don't know why I won. I mean, I don't know why he...
Well, having done this on him, he probably saw in you what someone saw in him, right? So
I guess.
Yeah.
But he knew
it's about the creativity. It's not
creativity
about
or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was like I hounded him. And, he gave me his number, and I called him and I said, when do I come to New York to meet you?
Yeah.
And then that whole thing happened. He goes, well, you're going to have to go through these things to
Yeah.
get to know these people at
Yeah.
Glenby. And then when I was told that they wanted me to start in Buffalo and be the creative director of that salon, Jen's, the store that I was at, was the Bergdorf's of Buffalo.
Yeah.
So I have I've been shopping at Bergdorf's men's department. I have been in the women's department looking at all the designers and getting familiar with Jeffrey Bean and Bill Blass and all that. And Jen's had Saint Laurent, Chanel, Dior, all those. They were a boutique. The women could buy their clothes and be so fashionable that they looked like they stepped out of Paris or Milan or New York. Yeah. And so I moved to Buffalo and then I met my husband, Tom, at the salon. I basically hired him. My divorce went through because I knew that wasn't my life.
Right.
But the point is that I gathered a clientele that I was still booked every 15, 20 minutes because it was roller set, and then hair cutting and blow drying was coming into fashion. So I was on that curve.
Yeah.
So when I started working for Glenby, I was being taught the bob, the wedge cut, the Dorothy Hamill, because Suga.
Yeah, we'll get
there.
Yeah.
So I was aware of what was moving forward.
Yes.
And I was moving forward with it.
Right.
But so I'm in Buffalo.
Yeah. So let's get you to New York, because I have a whole section, and I'm going to have an ID section like I did with Christian, because this is a fascinating time period. And Christian, who came before you, has a whole thing about natural hair. So we're going from In Vogue, and I'm going to ask you about it with Penn and Polly, no seeing through the hair, to natural hair. So let's start with so it's 75, you're 25, 26, and it's finally time to take your talent to New York City. Glenby owned salons and the department stores and put you in Bergdorf Goodman. You said, I was starting from scratch. At BG, the salon was really built for Suga. He was very welcoming and nice. This was the world of legendary New York salons. Kenneth had his salon, Vidal Sassoon had just opened, and John Frieda was starting. It was the golden era when salons and magazines were completely interconnected. When Christian and Julien were on the podcast, they both spoke about this period, the salons of New York, and how wildly the industry has changed. Christian told this story when he arrived in New York in '66 by mistaken identity, straight out of the military, barely speaking English from a small Dutch village. He says, Kenneth was remarkable in a way because he had this private room, and I didn't recognize her so much, but I recognized a voice at some point that I realized it was Jackie Kennedy sitting there. And the odd thing is that there was no security, no nothing. Everything was so relaxed. Vidal Sassoon was completely different because it was a madhouse of a salon. Lots of people in one big room. Vidal walking around, obviously the king of the hill. I found him exemplary in how he handled his staff, who by then were already superstars in New York. Those guys that worked in that particular salon, Paul Mitchell, Paul McGregor, there was a whole club that spread out in the early 70s, just as I started at Bergdorf. John Sahag was one of those. They were all characters out of the movie Shampoo. They had the world at their fingertips, and they were having a ball. I never ended up belonging in that group because by the time I got to New York, I was married. And married was not what these guys did. No, they did the other way. He also spoke about how editors would come into the salons, and that's how stylists were sent on shoots. Julien said that his early credits were Julien for Jean-Louis David. So we're getting into the stage. Tell us about the move upstate New York to Manhattan, from Buffalo Salon to Bergdorf, the big leagues. How were those first weeks? And did you experience that same rock star hairstylist world that Christian and Julien described? You've said, looking back, it was in that move to the big city that I really created my life and became Garren. So I also want to know how that happened.
So I just did a presentation for our company, for R&Co Blue.
Yeah.
And I got dressed and I looked in the mirror before I left the hotel, and there was Garren standing there, and I took a picture, and I had my agent post it. I said, the package has arrived. And I start now, like in the last 2 years, I've been reminiscing about my life as Garren.
I mean,
So
there has to be a movie, Garren. There has to be a movie.
There's things that I just did that I knew how I did it, but then it's like climbing a ladder. You get to the top and then you freak out and you go, okay, I got to go back down to the bottom and start again. So my first thing was I met Chris John. He was the man that there was photographs of girls coming out of the water in bathing suits, and their hair was combed, but it was wet. And to me, it was a hairstyle. It wasn't like they just came out of water.
Right.
And I started following his transformations of Patty Hansen, Lisa, all the models from that decade, Renee Russo,
right,
Rosie Vella, and Christy Brinkley. So I was watching all these transformations. So when I got to Bergdorf's, I was there almost 6 months before Sugo. So they had put like when the elevator doors opened, there was a rotunda and then the desk, and then you go through another foyer, and then it was the salon. And there was 6 stations down the middle, and then flanked off to the sides where you saw Central Park. And this was just the styling room, or the hair cutting and styling room.
right.
There was also a color room. There was a esthetician room. Everything was separated.
Yeah.
So fast forward for you, in the middle, all the Glimby, the presidents, the vice presidents, and everybody are sending me their wives. So now I'm in a salon and they say to me, I have my clients from Buffalo flying to New York to get their hair cut because they couldn't be without.
Yeah, of course.
Also, my husband, Tom, we were dating back then. He says, I'm coming too. So he was put at
Bendel.
Jean-Louis Dalby, which was Bendel's.
Oh, Bendel's, yes.
Bendel's had Jean-Louis Dalby.
Yes.
So he was there with Jean-Louis Dalby, and I was at Bergdorf's. Then Bendel's went through a transformation, and Tom ended up in the BG cutting salon.
BG cut, right. That they made
that
for
was
Christian.
That was downstairs.
Yes.
So I'm in the big salon.
Yeah.
Tom is in the lower, the small salon, because Tom also was able to do glamorous hair, but he was more cut and go.
Yeah.
So I started implementing all of that. And then the manager took me aside one day and she says, I need help from you. And I says, well, whatever, you want. I mean, I'm fine. And she says, this salon was built for Suga. You understood that it was being done very elaborate and it was being done very modern, and it had a different note to it than when you first were interviewed. She says, and I wanted you to know that him and his team will be coming in a month, and you're in the center station where he is going to be with his 2 people. So would you take the lead and move somewhere else in the salon so I don't have the problem with all the other stylists?
Right.
I totally understood it. I says, can I have a window on the park? And
this is a different world, Garren.
A different world. This is glamour.
But
this is glamour.
These are rock stars. You guys are all like the way, shampoo even came out back then, but for everyone now, like this is
shampoo came out after this whole thing.
Yeah. But way before. Yeah. Well, yes. But this is wild that no one understands that rock hairstylists.
Today they don't.
And McGregor, and reading about that other guy from the British rock star that Julianne was obsessed with. Maybe
Antoine?
No, he loved him as an inspiration. The guy Daniel, that he worked with. Harlow.
Yes, I know.
Harlow.
Daniel Harlow.
Yes. Like you guys
and
are
you had Carita in Paris. You had Alexandre in Paris. There was so many French hair. I met Julien when he would come into the studio when I would be on a shoot with Penn or Bill King, and he was this little kid running errands.
Yes, another
I mean,
kid
adorable,
like you.
adorable.
Yeah.
I would talk to him at the desk, and he would be like, you know, it was
It's
like,
so wild.
it was what it was. And then Bill King was using Julien if I wasn't available in Paris. So it was
rock
like all
stars, literally rock stars. You guys
we were beginning. And the thing is that Suga had Gloria Vanderbilt, Martha Graham, every society. I was obsessed with society.
Yeah.
Now, all the society and all the debutantes were these women that had grown, and you got Jackie Kennedy staying close to Kenneth, but then you had Lee Roswell, and you had Gloria Vanderbilt going to Suga, and you had Dorothy Hamill going to Suga to get her hair cut. So when Suga wasn't available, he would suggest they come and sit in my chair. So then I was doing Gloria Vanderbilt, and I was doing Lee Roswell. What I would see him do with Martha Graham, I would just be like in awe with the hair pieces and the twists.
Yeah.
And then that hair was just so coiffed, so beautiful. Brooke Shields as a child would come into the salon and get perms. And it was before Blue Lagoon and Pretty Baby. She was gorgeous.
No,
but I knew she was being photographed, but she was in someone else's chair. You know, like, it was just.
But it doesn't seem like there was competition. It seemed like everyone.
No, everybody worked together.
Yeah.
Everybody owned their moment.
Yeah, some people just looking, because this is interesting, from Christian's IDs from his interview, John Sahag, obviously, Paul McGregor, Suga, I have here is Yusuke, Maury Hobson, Ara Gallant.
Yeah. Gallant was
Hero. It's just
Hero.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's just
Ara Gallant was like, just before I moved to New York, it was Christian, Suga, and Ara Gallant.
And then
that were in the pages.
Is DDA
not yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Not yet. Okay. So DDA is now coming in from France.
Yes, moving to New York.
He doesn't move to New York until Frederick Furkai is at Bergdorf's.
I mean, this is like a whole.
I'm pretty sure that DDA came in with Frederick.
I feel like you guys at that time were bigger than the photographers in a way. That's
not really. For glamour, we were bigger. It was so important for women to get their hair done.
Yeah.
And it was all about the way they looked. They had an image. They continued that image. We had all the Fendi sisters coming to Bergdorf's, and I did 3 of them. Then there was Ferré's sister that came to Missoni's were at Bergdorf. All the designers, when they came from Europe, they were all getting their hair done at Bergdorf's. So I was doing all that, and Suga couldn't do a photo shoot for Vogue, but I had already started working for Glamour, because Glamour at the time in Mademoiselle did On the Road. So through Glenby, I got introduced to Glamour and Mademoiselle, and I started doing small stories in both magazines.
I want to back up, Garren, because people won't understand that the way it was back then, too, is that you're meeting all the editors. They're coming to the salon. So it's not where when I talk to Orlando or even Dick Page, even Stefan with makeup, they're bringing books and dropping them off at magazines. You right away, being at these salons, there's no freelance hairstylists at the time. The salons are sending something.
No, it wasn't quite like that.
To do that.
He left to do editorial because him and Arthur became very close.
Well, and he got fired for his outfit.
But it's true. We had to kind of wear these ugly lavender lab coats. And I was just like, this is where the black all came in.
Yeah.
Because I said, if I have to put that on, I'm going to wear all black under it. Then before Suga got there, I was able to switch it to white lab coats with the manager. I says, don't you think men look better in a white lab coat. And
That's
she
good.
said, let me talk to Suga and see if he'll be up to it. And that's where it changed for
Wow.
Bergdorf's.
Right.
Okay, now here's a little insert that you need
Yeah.
to know. The Chadwicks left Glenby. Roger Thompson, Vidal Sassoon's style director and number one hairdresser, he actually created most of this. I mean, Vidal did the A-line and a couple of things on Grace Coddington,
Yeah.
but then it was all Roger Thompson. So Roger Thompson is now the creative director of Glenby. I'm there. I'm one of his educators. I'm learning the Vidal Sassoon technique right with me. So now I understand the little 6-inch scissor and how it was going, but I was in a hurry. So I would take the bigger scissors, like 7-inch, like blade, and I would start cutting. And Roger would say, I don't know how you do it with that big scissor, but you're precise. Everything's right. And we worked as a team for Glenby. Now there's a moment where Suga couldn't do certain Vogue things.
Right.
So he would say, have Garren go do it.
Wow.
So there was a hair story that Phyllis Posnick was doing, who I met at Glamour Beauty.
Right. Do the intro for you.
Okay.
So, because then you don't have to take us all back. So at Bergdorf Goodman, the salon was led by hairdresser Suga. He was welcoming and kind, and as it turned out, pivotal. Suga had a Vogue shoot he couldn't do. He suggested you. It was a 5-page story with Christy Brinkley and editor Phyllis Posnick. You'd already worked with Christy and Phyllis at Glamour, but this was your first Vogue booking. Quote, Vogue liked what I did on Christy, you said, and I was introduced to Jade Hobson and Polly Mellon. I thought, oh my God, this is really happening. When you met Polly, she was prepping a job at Irving Penn's studio. She liked your work so much, you soon became a regular there, working with both Penn and Polly. That moment set off what would become a 40-plus year relationship with Vogue. Within months of arriving in New York, you were working with Irving Penn and Richard Avedon, the dream. Your mentors weren't salon owners, they were magazine editors, Polly Mellon, Jade Hobson, and Phyllis Posnick. You've talked about 2 shoots that changed everything, both around 77, 78. The Christy Brinkley story with Phyllis and the Farrah Fawcett shoot with Polly. You said, Polly brought me to Mr. Penn's studio and Avedon's studio, and Jade brought me to Chris Von
Wagenheim and Bill King.
I didn't realize where I was because it happened within a year. It was just so crazy. From that point on, you quit working full-time in salons to focus entirely on magazines and fashion shows. And it all began with that first Vogue story. Phyllis Posnick seeing your work, then introducing you to Jade Hobson and Polly Mellon. So now let's go, because I just want everyone to kind of have a...
So that story, being that I knew Christy's hair already from working with her with Glamour, I wasn't as nervous as I would have been. But I also felt I knew Phyllis, and it was with Ishimuro, and I didn't know the photographer, but I knew his work. But I knew that Phyllis, called, as she always does, beforehand and said, bring a crimping iron because I might want to introduce a crimping iron. And I totally understood. I had it, and I went to the shoot. We did the shoot, and the yin and yang of this story was how to incorporate crimped hair with silky, smooth hair. So what I did is I crimped all the hair underneath, and Christy had blunt hair, like just above the breast. And I then left the top corn silk and crimped the ends. So it kind of parasoled out. And then I had to do 2 other looks, which one was up and another one was blowing. So that credit came in, Garren for Suga at Bergdorf Goodman.
For Suga at Bergdorf.
At Bergdorf Goodman. So I remember Phyllis has me come to the office on Madison Avenue.
Yeah.
And she introduces me to Jade Hobson and Polly Mellon. And I'm talking to Jade, and Polly's not there yet. No, she's at a studio. So I talked to Jade, and Jade says, I have a story coming up and I want you to do it. It's going to be with Gia and Vivica and a couple other models. It's going to be outside. It's going to be with Patrick. And where do we call and all that. And so that was happening. And then I get the phone call that Polly Mellon wants to meet me at Mr. Penn's studio during my book. I have no pictures in my book. I had nothing. Christie's picture just came out, but I had all glamour. So I go to meet Polly, and Mr. Penn is sitting there, and she introduces me to Mr. Penn, and I am totally like out of body experience.
Yeah. You said I have to pinch myself. When I went in for my first interview to see Irving Penn, I only had 4 pictures in my book. Polly Mellon was there, and she introduced us, and before you know it, I was Penn's head hairdresser.
And you don't know this, but you're going to know it now.
Yeah.
Stephen Klein was working in the studio as a kid. So I saw Stephen Klein. I didn't know who he was. Polly Mellon, which I knew, like I met her. And then I had Mr. Penn. And it was just a wonderful experience. And when I walked to the elevator, Polly and Mr. Penn said, "We'll see you soon." And I was just like,
God.
Did I hear that properly?
Yes.
So now you go back to my first shoot with Jade, and it's outside, it's fur coats. And I knew crimped hair was in fashion, but with a Marcel iron and not with a crimping iron. Now, Vivica had very fine hair, like hardly no hair. So the night before, my husband is sitting down and I'm going, "You have to sit. I need to practice this on your head." And I did the Marcel on him, and he's looking at it and he's going, "So now what are you going to do?" And I says, "Well, I don't know. But I do know that this is the texture I need.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to have to wing it." So I go to the shoot. I prep all the hair in the office because that's how they did it back then. There was no van or anything like that back then. So we went to the 59th Street Bridge, the Queensboro Bridge. There's a walkway. It was windy out and I'm like dying. I'm like, oh God, the hair is going to be a mess.
Yeah.
But I had models like Vivica and another model that knew how to take the hair and push it to the wind. Like, let the wind take it.
Right.
So now these girls were doing their own makeup at that point.
You're right. I've
There
never
wasn't-
heard
there
about
wasn't-
any makeup people.
No, there was only 3 makeup artists that were Vogue makeup artists at the time. It was Way Bandy,
Yep. You talked about
Ariella, who's passed away, and Sandy Lintner.
Oh my God.
Now, Ariella, my second job was with Deborah Turberville and Jade. And it was a gold story. It was done in an old hat making place, Mr. James on 57th Street. And they were dressed in all this Julio, Bill Blass, everything was gold.
Yeah.
All the models were redheads, except for Jerry Hall,
Right.
Sonny Redmond, Kathy Quirk, and Jerry Hall, and 2 other girls. I don't remember their names, but they were like in the background. Now, Deborah Turberville was very quiet. She had this aesthetic about her. Her film was very grainy, very seductive, but very like you were removed from the picture. Like you were drawn in, but you were removed. So I crimped all their hair. Jerry Hall came because I've worked with Jerry Hall for myself back then and for Glenby. And it was like Jerry came with her little sponge rollers in her head because I called her the night before and said, "Jerry, will you set your hair because it's going to be with Deborah?" And she goes, "I kind of know what we're doing and what you need, so I'm going to help you get it there." So it was Ariella that was doing the makeup for that shoot. And it was the first time I worked with Ariella, but I had met her through Glenby like 5 years earlier.
Right.
Now, as all this is happening, Roger Thompson decides that he's now going to leave his position at Glenby as style director. Now they were going to replace them with somebody. It ends up being Garren, not my other 2 people that I worked with. I was in shock, total shock. Now I got Vogue happening. I have Harper's Bazaar happening. I have Polly Mellon coming into my life. I am now working with Mr. Penn.
And you're in your 20s.
And I'm not even 20. I'm 22, 23.
That is crazy.
And all of a sudden, Glenby says, we're building you a salon at the Plaza Hotel. So my name became Garren at the Plaza.
And then
So
all
now-
your credits would be that too?
It would be Hair by Garren at the Plaza.
Okay, finally.
And now I have a team of kids that I brought in from other salons that Glenby had from Chicago and all that. My husband's with me. We all are working together.
Oh my.
Now I meet Paul Cavaco and Keisha Kiba, and they're doing Armani shows. They're doing Valentino. They're doing now Garren at the Plaza, and all of Garren at the Plaza's team is doing all these fashion shows in New York for Keisha and Paul. And Paul and Tom became very close because he worked with Bruce Weber and Barry McKinley and all those men's magazines. So Tom started focusing himself to men's grooming. Right. And I was like on my own. My contemporaries at that time, when I had the Plaza, was Christian, John Sahag, Suga. Suga had just passed away. So I was actually doing Vogue covers with Avedon when it was Suga, Garren, John Sahag.
I've seen the old stories. Yeah, it's
John
all of you.
Sahag was a genius. And I don't care. He was the king of the shag, of the Lolita, of the Sauvage. Right. He was frickin' major. We were very friendly. All of us were friends.
Yeah, that's what's so...
Christian came to my opening party at the Plaza. He brought Arthur. John came. Everybody. It was just like all the editors.
So when you got that job, it seems so different my time. What I was...
yes.
Yeah, no, so when you got
that's
that...
what I'm saying. You came in a box. And your box started where your box started.
Yeah, and I have a whole thing at the end about this mentorship and what you all did with each other and what you continued with Orbe to do.
Well, yeah, because Orbe then, I met him when I had the salon at the Plaza. I met him through his boyfriend, Anthony Sanacero, who was a collector, an antique dealer, interior designer. Orbe was 16. I came home to see my family, my mother, and Tony and Orbe came over for Sunday supper. And so I met Orbe and I said, what do you want to do? He said, I don't know. I just said, if you want to be a hairdresser, this is what you got to do. Yeah. You have to go to beauty school, get that under your belt, find a salon in Buffalo that you can build your aesthetic. Yeah. Get your mojo going, and then give me a call and you'll have a job at So just like that, and me to Orbe. Yeah. So now Orbe is ready to come to New York. He's like 19 or 20, maybe. God. He's just a kid. Yeah. And Tony and him getting a small apartment there, and they are now fashionistas. They're wearing all Claude Montana. Yeah. We're all Studio 54 is happening. We are regulars at the club. Yeah. I placed Orbe right when you got off the elevators at the Plaza. So it was Tom and Orbe and one other girl. So that the women, when they came in, they saw these two studs. Yeah. And, I knew how to play the game. Because I always was bald after that point. So I knew who I had to be. I knew what I created. Mr. Penn used to call me Maestro. And I just realized this like 5 years ago. Any studio, I learned I was like a sponge. When I worked with Avedon, I knew the DNA because there was no music.
Well, okay, so let's get to that because I have a photographer section. I break it down with Avedon, Penn, and Mizell. But right now with the editors, Polly seems to have been the fairy godmother for so many people. Unfortunately, I never got to meet her, and I've worked with Phyllis for years, and I didn't even know. It's like I know she was back then, but I guess I just never,
She was as powerful as Dinah Vreeland.
Wow.
Okay, I want to just throw a little piece in here.
Yeah.
Before I moved to New York, we all went to the Met Ball for the cocktail time, and that's where I met Jade, Vera, all of them, because it was a party for the industry as well as the designers and the society. It was all society. Models came because we were having fun.
Right.
Already, I decided in 1973 that I was only going to wear Saint Laurent and Valentino.
Oh my.
So they are young designers at this point.
Oh my God.
And I chose those two because it was such a look.
Right.
Gianni Versace was just starting out. So I got a few pieces from Versace because Tom worked at the men's shows for Versace.
Right.
I just knew that I wanted the Russian look from Saint Laurent. I knew Maria Schiano because she ran both stores and she was an ex-model. I knew Warhol because of Farrah. So all of this is now coming, but it's happening so quickly.
Right. In real time.
In real time, it's very quick. So I'm not comprehending that it was so major. I just was doing my job.
And you guys were all contemporaries, and that's what's so amazing when I hear about even Peter Lindbergh starting, when Christian talks about working with Arthur and Peter, like all of this. But but I do want to ask about the hair at the time for Vogue, because Christian talked about Polly saying to him, we had to kill that shoot because of your hair, because you weren't supposed to see through it.
And then I was brought on to the shoot because they killed his hair. So there's many stories back then that you would see 2 pages that said hair by Christian. And then it would say hair by Garren at the plaza. So, or
what was
then
that
Suga.
transformation? So you were there when hair could be free, which is crazy.
I was there when hair was constructed. Then we deconstructed it.
Okay. Yes. So talk about that.
So then you had photographers that wanted construction and under construction, like not constructed.
Right.
So that was the brilliance of knowing product and knowing what to apply to the girl to give them what they needed. You also have to understand is that we're coming out of the Vreeland fantasy period where Lauren Hutton and Karen Graham and all of them, you had Twiggy and you had Cher and you had Tina, you had all these images that were just so bold in your face.
Right.
Now, Marabella was in charge.
Right.
And so this was women being powerful. And women were being powerful and they were tagged on to the society women because they were power women because of their husbands being wealthy. So they dressed a certain way. And now the power woman that's taking over Vogue, it's taking over the agencies, or is taking over the Diamond District, or is taking over that, they would be wearing the Jeffrey Bean skirt, the certain little jacket, but their hair couldn't be too done, but it couldn't be too natural.
Wow,
so
this is so fascinating.
I was the one that cut Diane Sawyer's hair when she was just starting in the business, and I blunted her hair and I gave her the soft wave where it fell over one eye, over to the side. It was kind of like Savage. Then she locked on to John Sahag because he was more available and I was out on shoots. So, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I did Barbara Walters, but that was because of Glenby. So you had all these important women that sat in your chair, but also you went to their home, but not as much. You mostly likely did them in the salon. They did not want people coming to their home to do their hair. They wanted to see who else was in the salon.
Right.
They wanted to talk to their friends. They wanted to dress for their friends. So now Polly's going, we're going to do this, but it's not a relaxed situation. We have to control the hair. We have to give it an angst, whether it was a ponytail on the side or whether it was tucked behind the ear or whether one side was free. But we had all these.
Wow.
She taught me and Jade taught me what Avedon expected in a cover. What Penn expected. And everybody's got a different DNA.
Yes. Okay. So let me set that up because that is so Important. In the world of fashion photography, the relationship between photographer and hairstylist is crucial. But what you achieved with these three masters was something extraordinary. Let's talk about them, arguably the most important fashion photographers of all time. You met Irving Penn and Richard Avedon in the mid to late 70s through Polly Mellon. You've said, I'd watch the lighting, I'd watch the magic that was happening. Avedon would take one Polaroid, and then he would take 6 pictures and it was done. Penn would have one light. Polly taught me what to look for, not what looked good, but what looked wrong. Penn taught you to see the complete picture. You've described how he would ask detailed questions. How do you see her hair? What will be on her feet? Will she wear gloves? Phyllis told me all of this too. Is there any jewelry? How do you see the makeup? It wasn't just about hair. It was about a cohesive visual language. And you said Penn was always a gentleman, always thanking his team at the end of each shoot. After working with Penn, Avedon, and later Mizell, you experienced 3 completely different visual languages. Penn's sculptural precision, Avedon's movement and emotion, Mizell's cinematic transformation. You've said you'd watch the lighting, watch the magic, and adjust not for ego, but for the picture itself. So
let's start like my introduction to Avedon.
Yeah.
My first time was with Jade Hobson, and then it soon went back to Polly because Polly was doing Penn, so Jade had to do Avedon because it was between those 2 girls. You'd sit with Jade and she would have a conversation, and then you meet the girl, and it was always cover tries back then. It wasn't like you were getting a cover. It was 2 girls. One girl would come in the morning at 9. One girl would come in at 12. You would take your first pictures of the first girl till 12 o'clock. And then from 12 o'clock, you'd start over again and do the second girl. That was with Avedon. And then the thing with Avedon is everything was cropped very tight. So the importance of the hair was that it had to fill the side of the page where all the type went.
Right.
And this side of the page, the hair had to be controlled and out of the way. The face of the girl would either feed straight in or she'd be looking to the binder, to the edge, all the words are. There wasn't a lot of words on the cover. So they would either have a cap, an earring, or a scarf, or a dress tied around their neck. But there had to be a fashion credit, there had to be a jewelry credit, and the hair and the makeup.
Yeah.
So there's such a different array of models and actresses. Sherry Belafonte, Isabella Rossellini, Kim Alexis, Kelly LeBrock, Renee Russo, Rosie Vella, all of those girls, but they were multiples of each girl. Do you know what I mean? Like it rotated through the year.
Yes. It wasn't just Giselle on every cover.
No. Yeah. And you had 2 girls like Beverly Johnson and Sheila Johnson that were the cover girls back in that day of Avedon. And what you learned and what you disciplined yourself is you knew exactly where to put the hair, like I did.
Yeah.
And where his light would come, whether it would come straight in, come from underneath, come from the side. And it was, like I said, a Polaroid to check the balance, and then let's go for it.
And then you don't go back in? Once
your hands would touch bits, but you were always working from the outside. Like hair's like fabric. Hair blows, like Christian describes it, like it moves. So you got to kind of work yourself with the photographer so that you get out of the picture, but the hair is doing something.
Right.
You're at the end of it. You're going on the edge to make whatever they want happen. Or they could see it happen.
Right.
I remember with Avedon was Cindy Crawford's first cover, and it was with Kevin O'Quan. And they were both nervous. And it was Cindy in the morning, and it was Estelle in the afternoon. Now, I set Cindy's hair on some rollers and some clippies, and then when I brushed it out, it was perfect. And Avedon says, let's go shoot. Like the makeup was done, and it was Kevin did the makeup.
Right.
And we got on the set, and Kevin is like melting. And I go, you've arrived, Kevin.
Yeah.
He goes, I know, but is it going to be a cover? And when I saw it happen, I says, you not got one cover, you got two covers. He says, how do you know? I said, just wait till the end of the day. Just wait.
Yeah.
This is now the working woman cover, right? So she's in a blue, a suit with a silk blouse, and then she goes to pink. But I don't remember who the designers were, but it was someone like Bill Blass, or maybe Oscar De La Renta,
Yeah,
or
I'll find
Jeffrey
all of that,
Bean.
yeah.
But anyway, she ends up getting two covers, one for 1 month and 6 months later for another month.
Oh my God.
Okay. Now Estelle comes in the afternoon. So I'm looking at Estelle and I'm thinking Bardot. And Polly says, yeah, okay, I hear you. And they had this bustier with then an evening jacket with a ice blue collar. And I piled her hair up on top and it kind of fell over.
I know that cover. Yeah.
It's very delicate, but it's powerful. And then they said, we're going to the July cover. So they put her in a turtleneck, red, white, and blue with a star on her neck. And I just brushed the hair all out and trailed it down the back. And Dick said, leave the hair. It's perfect. And everything's perfect. Like, just stay there. Estelle, stay there. And now Estelle could hardly speak English, but she knew what was going on.
Yeah.
But that became a cover too. So we got 4 covers that day.
For 4 different months of...
4 different months of the same year. This is the way it always went.
Yeah.
It's like Kim Alexis would come in. She would do 2 covers. And then Kelly LeBrock would come in the afternoon. She would do 2 covers. And mostly Kelly would get 1 and Kim would get 2.
I never realized that you guys even did just cover shoots until I
Cover
talked
tries.
to Paul.
Yeah,
to
that's
Paul
it. That
Savaco
was it.
without a story. Without
no
a story.
because there was a formula.
Yes.
There was a formula and it was one photographer. And every once in a while, Patrick Demarchelier would get a Vogue cover because he had Patty Hansen or Rene Russo, and I would be with Phyllis.
Yeah.
And that would become a cover because I think Avedon only had like 10 covers that he had to do.
Right.
And 2 extra ones went to another photographer that was not under contract.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course.
It was totally different back then.
Yeah.
So now you want to talk about Penn.
Yes.
So when I got into Penn's world, now I'll back up to Avedon again. He was responsible for all the Revlon ads that were the most beautiful women in the world. But you can understand the girls he used. They were all his cover girls. Do you remember those ads?
Yeah. Yeah.
The Revlon? Okay. So you had Cindy in there. You had so-and-so in there. You had so-and-so. You had Sherry Belafonte in there. You had Isabella Rossellini in there.
Yeah,
you had Jerry Hall in there. You had Kim Alexis and Jerry. So we did those with him because we were on his team.
I found that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did that one.
Paulina. Yeah.
Yeah. And Paulina was another big name. Orbe did that one.
That's...
I mean, I could tell who did what.
Yeah.
That's even crazy. I did that one.
I mean,
Orbe did that one.
This is thousands and thousands of shoots.
Truth. I mean, it's unbelievable. Yeah. So now we go to Mr. Penn. And Mr. Penn was very quiet and he would talk the way Phyllis would say. He wanted to know what the idea was, where we were going. I did a lot of beauty and a lot of fashion with him. I did most of it with Polly. And then later on, I would do it with Phyllis. But not a lot with Phyllis because Phyllis was moving into Julianne and I went to Mizell.
Right.
I worked for Penn, I would say 15 years. He taught me how the light blows through his pictures because he treats the girl and the picture as a still life. Okay. So if the girl was standing in full fashion, he treated her as a still life, but she had to have a little bit of an expression. So if I was doing the hair where it was spiky or avant-garde, it would have to be twice as thick, almost ridiculous looking because half of that hair would be blown out from his light. So when doing couture, he would always tend to have Kelly Emberg and Leslie Weiner And he loved Kelly and he loved Jackie Adams. He loved the girls that had personality that
But
were
never
kind
about
of-
their hair.
think about the hair.
Okay.
We thought
Right.
about the girl.
Okay.
And then we created the hair.
Right.
Annette
That's
Stye.
when you say dress how you want and then put the hair on.
Well,
like,
you put the hair and
yeah,
makeup together.
yes,
And then,
yes.
then you have to give up one or the other.
Right.
Because everything can't be fabulous.
Right.
All right.
Right.
I just remember this one time we were doing Polly and there was this white voile foray blouse, the white see-through voile. And it was on Kim Alexis. And I had teased the hair and it was like huge. It was just big. And then I started pinning it up. The collar went up, the sleeve went like this. And then Penn would say, Garren, maestro, get in there, make it more. And I would tease and I would spray and I would tease and I would spray. He goes, now let me take a Polaroid. He would take a Polaroid. He goes, bigger. And I was like looking at it. I'm going, why is it like, it was this big.
Yeah.
But she was blonde. So half of it was being blown out.
Right.
So when you see the finished picture, it's this kind of shape and this blouse, you see the silhouette of the blouse, but you see totally through it. And you see the grain of the voile. He taught me that he could separate velvet from satin and you would be able to feel and see the velvet pieces and the silky satin, black on black, because his light basically was a still life.
Yeah. I know he asked all these questions about every little thing and Phyllis jokes, but although he cropped everything, as she says.
Yes.
But would you be sitting before the shoot talking about hair, or would that be something that Phyllis brings to him?
No, it was all of us. Maybe Phyllis and him had a conversation before the shoot without hair and makeup being there. But once the model was in the dressing room, it was like the editor, the hair, the makeup, and Penn. And we'd have a conversation and he'd say, good morning to the girl. And he would talk to her and we're doing a picture today. And Phyllis would have filled us in a little bit, but she wasn't overdoing it. And then whether it was myself, Francois, or Kevin, makeup was very important to him as well as hair. Because with his light, the skin tone had to be a certain depth. So they all looked like they were tanned, but they weren't when they were photographed.
Right.
So like in real life, the skin tone was always like, whoa, because of the arms and the body, a lot of body makeup because everything had a match.
Right.
So the makeup was important for the foundation from the beginning. When I worked with him with Vincent Nassau, the foundation was what Penn would be happy to look at because he knew that work in his light. If the makeup artist was having trouble with the makeup, we would stop the picture and maybe end that day and start another day with a new makeup artist.
And was makeup first or second with him?
It was a combination back and forth.
Okay.
But the way it always worked back then is I would prep the hair. She'd go totally into makeup, sit in makeup for an hour or whatever. And then she would get dressed, the top part of her outfit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would start working on the hair and we would present it to Mr. Penn, and he would look at it and he would go, hey, let's get on set, or Phyllis, take off the necklace or put on more. It's, what am I talking about here?
Right.
Why has she got a bathing suit on? Like, where's...
So to finish the look.
When he did a pure look, it was
yes.
pure. He needed to see the visual.
Right. So it's kind of like always having someone that's from before that can kind of bring the history.
And also you're doing it so subtly. It's not
right.
You're in boot camp.
Right. Exactly.
he had fun with the girls. He loved Nicole Kidman. I never really got to work with him with Nicole Kidman because it was later on with Julian and Bay. And there was another great hairdresser called Harry King that did all the Cosmo covers. And he was one of the big ones. That was Harry King, Suga, myself, and Chris John before John Sahag. So it's unbelievable that I was in his studio, became friends with Mr. Penn and his wife, Lisa Bongraves. We traveled to Europe and we'd all stay in the hotel together. I went to my first couture YSL show, Yves Saint Laurent show in Paris in 1976 or 77 with Mr. Penn, Polly, and Lisa. And we sat in the front row all together. Now, here I am, a hairdresser in the front row of couture because Polly and Vogue had set it up that way because we were with Mr. Penn. It's several times that we went with Mr. Penn and Lisa and Polly, and I always was in the front row, whether it was Chanel or whether it was Saint Laurent. So that impact of the colors that Saint Laurent put on the runway and the textures and the fabrics, like when Aaron Code said, we want to do a luxury line, Garren, what would you like to do? And I stepped back and I thought about it. I said, every campaign that I've ever done where blue is in the fragrance, it's always got attention. Thinking of Dolce & Gabbana, Chanel, all of them, they have blue. And I said, why don't we call it blue? And they're like, well, okay. Now I said, but let's spell it BLEU or BLU. So it'd be Arco Blue. It was beautiful the way it was done. Then I said, and what I really think we should think about, because I went to all the, Sephora, the department stores, all I saw was a sea of black. And I just said, we need color. And I brought in swipes of Saint Laurent fashion shows from the 70s and the 80s. And even this is the green. We do it in little houses, like blue is essential. That's for everyone. That is mostly your styling products. And it's that YSL blue that's just beautiful, cobalt. And then we do that green, that puffy coat that Donna Jordan wore for reparative. Then we do this amazing purple that he used to do. And that would be for volume and thickening. And then red orange, not red, because Valentino owns red, but Saint Laurent had a red orange. It was locked in. So primary color for color treated hair was that red orange. And then we did blonded, which was that bright acid yellow he used to do in the taffeta. And that was for blonded. We did fuchsia for curly hair. And then we just launched the new scalp therapy product. And that segment is like an icy purpley blue, which was that beautiful chiffon color that you create. So we have a lot more colors in our stall that we're going to bring out as we start building the line. But once they started going with it, they were like, this is amazing. And when you see it on the shelves in beauty salons or at Blue Mercury or on our website, the colors are so vivid. And when they line them up, it tells a story. One more thing about Penn.
Yeah.
I cut Lisa's hair, his wife's hair, and we traveled together. And he said, Lisa and I want to do something for you. We want to give you something. And I said to him, I love a portrait. Now, I was so naive, like a portrait from Penn. You don't ask for that. you don't. But there's a little more background there because we did Versace with Mr. Penn, and they would bring him clothes to give to him. And I'd look at the clothes and I'd go, ooh,
Yeah.
he's not going to wear that. And then I said to Donatello one time, I says, bring some gray flannel pants or gray cashmere pants and a navy jacket with the button.
Yeah.
Give me something I can work with.
Right.
And so what I did is they brought in a navy blazer, a navy coat, gray pants and navy pants, and they were slightly too big for him. So I said, don't worry about it. I'll come back tomorrow. I'm going to pin it all. I'm going to take it to my tailor and have it fitted for you, because he just didn't know if he could ever wear this stuff. So I did it, brought it back, and that was his uniform, what he would wear to all the shows. And every day he'd come to work in that navy blazer, gray slacks, and a navy or gray mock turtleneck or a shirt.
Yeah.
And then he changed into his jeans and his work shirt.
Oh,
so it was like that. And then one day we were doing Paloma Picasso with Phyllis, and Penn was copying the famous picture he did with Picasso with the light coming over the one eye. And as I walked in the morning, he says, look at what you have on and wrap your scarf and put your coat on exactly the way you are right now. And he had his assistant take a picture of me in the mirror. And I had a Saint Laurent navy coat on with a gray scarf wrapped around my neck. And he says, I'm going to try to take your portrait today. But here's the deal. He says, it's very hard for me to photograph someone I know personally. I got it. And then he said, if it works, you have one. If it doesn't work, we have this deal. Right, Garren? I said, I'm fine.
Oh, yeah.
Till I got in front of the camera, I started flipping out because I knew he's going, look, see something. Look, turn. My neck was killing me. He put the same light on my head. I'm going to show you the photograph now.
Yes, please. Oh, my God.
And not only did he give me one signed to me, he gave Tom one signed to him.
Oh,
Love, Mr. Penn. So there's a history there, and it was very endearing because we became family. Now I start working with Mizell. Now, Orbe's been with Mizell from get-go.
Well, let me set it up. Then came Stephen Mizell in the early 90s. You worked exclusively with him for about 20 years, a creative synergy that defined an era. Together, you created the New Guard editorial for Vogue US in 2000, countless Vogue Italia covers, and the Versace and Dolce & Gabbana campaigns. This was the partnership that defined the supermodel era. Every transformation of Linda, Naomi, Christy, Amber happened under your hands and his lens. Madonna's Marilyn look for Italian Vogue, the sex book, all of it. You've said, luckily, during the course of my career, I've been able to relive it through the models I've worked on, especially in the 90s and 2000s with Stephen Mizell. I was able to pull all my characters out. Those characters from Cat on a Hot Tin Roof to Belle de Jour were cinematic, psychological, and deeply considered. If Mizell was shooting, you were doing the hair, period. I remember that. The bookings were not about when is the Oscar winner available. It was when Mizell, Garren, and Pat were available, because that was the only way the shoot was happening.
When I started with Mizell, I was with Francois Nars. And Francois Nars and myself and Stephen, we were a team. And if Nars was not available, he would switch over to Kevin. He knew who to give Kevin to, like Barbara Streisand or whatever, because he wanted the right fit when it comes to makeup.
Right.
And then there was Laura Mercier, that was part of Madonna's period. And Francois Nars definitely was Madonna, like the beginning when we created her, like Marilyn Monroe. And that's when Madonna would come to the studio by herself. And we were on Park Avenue South. And we would be laughing. And it was so easy. Like up until this point, everything was easy. People came, they left.
Right.
There
Yeah.
was no one interfering.
Well, how did you meet Mizell, and what was that?
Tom
Okay.
said to me, I want you to meet Stephen Mizell. We used to go to this club, and he would be sitting up in the top corner, like Stephen would sit in the back watching. And I knew Orbe had been Stephen's right arm. They created together until there was an issue. And then, of course, things happened. So then I became on board. But then Stephen started working with me, and every once in a while he would have Julianne. It was me, Julianne, then Ward a bit, but it was hardly anyone else.
But were you still with Penn? Because you were Penn's
I was
head.
kind of Penn, and Avedon was gone now because Penn's still working for Vogue. So I'm back and forth between Penn.
Would you have to ask Penn if he's going to need you before booking someone else?
Mizell knew that if Penn had a job for me, I was with Penn.
Okay, got it.
There was a respect there because he was still creating Stephen, the thing. So I want to correct something that I always say. I worked with Linda before she cut her hair, and I worked with her with Francois Hollard with Polly, and we made her and Cindy very simplistic and very up. They were like very rich looking, very simple. Every time I had to work with Linda, I was always lost with the hair because I felt she was much more beautiful without hair.
Right.
Julianne had the same issue with Linda because every time he worked with her, with Peter, they always would characterize her and sculpt her head and put a short wig on her and all that. Finally, Peter and Julianne talked her into cutting her hair off. Julianne cut her hair off, and I thank him from the bottom of my heart because it made my life take off. Because I was able to take what he did and recreate it and recreate it and recreate it. It was always about Juju with Linda and Garren. It was back and forth.
Well, because the transformations didn't happen until after the hair was gone. So then the chameleon started.
Right.
No one knows her before short hair, really. And then she becomes a chameleon, different colors, different styles.
But it's also because Stephen Mizell embraced it and made it a thing.
Right.
And it was the first time in any model history that models could cut their hair and they wouldn't lose contracts.
Yeah, because she lost all of her bookings for the shows after that.
Yeah, but then Stephen
got her the covers
and made her this unbelievable, where Kelvin leaped into it. Ralph Lauren leaped into it. Every American designer jumped in. All the European designers then jumped on board. Because then you have Amber with her little bowl cut that I created.
Yes.
And even when I cut Naomi's hair off to her own hair, she was featured on American Vogue. So like it was a time and a place that will never happen again.
Right.
It should happen again, but celebrities won't do it.
No,
if they do it, they put a wig on, or if they cut their hair, they stick on like extensions. It's disgusting.
Yeah, no, and I say that all the time. She's got to make a change. She's got to look different. She'll have the cover of Women's Wear. Like she's got to, otherwise you're another girl with
You're
long
just
blonde.
a girl, long wavy hair.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So Vogue embraced it, and they went with it. I mean, Anna Wintour got to a point where any celebrity like Sandra Bullock or anyone else was put on the cover, they had to get their hair cut by Garren. Right. When we did Lisa Marie Presley, Stephen wanted her hair black, and he wanted her hair like her father.
That was genius.
So Vogue had the power then to say, you're going to be with the team, and you're just going to have to roll with it, kids, because this is the cover that is going to define you. Exactly. And the same thing with Oprah. She was so leery about me doing her hair. But when I got to her, it was like, oh my God, look how gorgeous she made me look. Right. So it was that power that Vogue had and the photographer had, we had. It wasn't power. It was like there was respect.
Respect.
It's respect. They would come into my salon at the Sherry Netherlands or at the Henry Bendel. We would have a consultation, real one.
Right.
And then I'd say, well, Stephen's thinking this, and we are thinking that. Can you wrap your head around it? Because this is what's going to happen. So we're letting you know before the day of the shoot, and we're going to color your hair tomorrow because he wants it a certain color for the shoot. And that's how it worked.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what I felt so good about is that I was able to create fashion and create looks and have them talked about and emulated, but also have my salon where I was able to bring my clients that thing. Yes. And when Linda and Amber and Christy and everybody came to the salon to get their hair colored or cut or trimmed or whatever, they saw the girls real. It was on real time.
Versus
you know what I mean?
Well, versus you when you were seeing the magazine when you were younger, it was long, short, and you were kind of like
I was confused.
Yeah.
But now people are tearing pictures out.
Yes.
Vogue made it important to be the hairdresser of the time.
Yes.
Garren was the godfather. I was listed the godfather of hair. Then there was another time, Garren, the super sheer genius.
Yep.
And that was Phyllis. Godfather was Phyllis. And so like you had a platform. So you had a life. You know, Victoria Beckham was coming to me because Vogue said,
they did big features too.
They did features. Yeah. And Amber told Victoria, Linda told Victoria, if you're going to change your life, you're going to change your hair, you go see Garren. So there's many conversations. The same thing with Barbara Streisand. I had to go to Barbara's apartment for Steven to talk her into wearing her hair down, not frizzy, and to do it up in an updo because he wanted her as Barbara Streisand that he adored.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
So every time we worked with Barbara, she'd go, I got the message. I know already. Yeah. But it was a thing. And, you know, to work with Madonna and transform her for decades, I spent 25 years with her. And Orlando spent time with her. Yeah. And then she started going back and forth between us. And there was never any animosity between Orlando and myself. Right. I mean, it was just like, good luck, kid. You know, you're doing it now. You're on that rodeo.
Yeah. I want to ask you about that 20 years, that exclusive type situation, because I think back at my 20 years exclusive relationship with Vogue. And I think I didn't need to stay 20 years. I could have done 10. It would have been the same on my resume. Could have been 5. Like with that 20.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking the word resume at all.
Oh yeah. But in that, but in that 20 years, was he exclusive to you or were you exclusive to him? Were you able to work with other photographers?
He didn't mind. And I knew it. It was never said.
Right. Right.
I could work with Mr. Penn.
Right.
I could work with Avedon. I could work with Patrick DeMarchelier. And I could work with Stephen Klein because we were friends.
Right. From way back.
Okay. So it just depended. Stephen would book up my time a month at a time. You know, and then the empty spots is where I put everybody else.
Okay. So you were still.
But if there was an important shoot that I needed to go to.
Yes.
Somehow it always worked out.
Exactly.
And like there'd be a shoot that I knew I wasn't right for, and it was Julianne. It didn't bother me. It wasn't like I was dying.
Basically, it was you had first right of refusal. So you would get every job that came through.
No, he would put me in the ones that he wanted me
Okay,
in.
got it.
Like every Vogue cover was Garren.
Yeah, American I looked Vogue. Back at all those. It was Kavaka. It was every month.
I need to have Garren because it was changing and he needed someone that could buffer the celebrity.
Right.
And Garren and Pat were the team. Okay. Yep. And there's certain advertisers like Dolce and Versace that when we did it, it was either me or Guido.
Right.
Guido did a lot of Versace. But, you know, Guido was in and out because Guido was really tight with David Sims. So Guido's time with Stephen was leftover time that he didn't have with David Sims and Craig McDean.
Right. Yes. It's like a progression and people
but now it's totally Guido.
Right.
Because Guido,
but you're not
I'm not doing it.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
no. COVID is what defied the end of Garren. because everybody lost their jobs.
Right.
There was no, I mean, I also know why Matt and Marcus, I knew that was a real sore for Stephen. And I held off for like 5 years, not even considering working with
Right.
Matt and Marcus. But then there was certain celebrities like Madonna and so and so,
Right.
Matt and Marcus. And I had to say to Stephen, I really got to do this.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, you know, but
Yeah.
he also was moving into giving Guido more work because
Right.
Guido was
Yeah,
not
he
getting
needed to feel safe. And I think also that's why I asked.
there was always respect, and there's
Yeah.
respect to
Yeah.
this
Because
day.
you want to be able to experience you're an artist.
He allowed me to do any fantasy that came into our heads. And we were able to do it on the most beautiful girls in the world. And we were able to transform anyone into anything. We knew when we wanted to strip it down and make it grunge. We did grunge together. And I got to work with Grace a lot, and I got to work with Tawny a lot.
Yeah.
Tawny and Grace was Tawny and Grace and Tawny and Grace. And it was like, and Paul Cavaco and Paul Cavaco.
Yeah.
So it was
for
like,
so long, Paul.
so like Polly's gone, and now I'm with
Yeah.
Tawny and Paul. And then
Yeah.
Grace comes in.
Yeah.
And then I started working with Carlene, but Carlene was really sold on Orbe. She loved that, the zhuzh, you know,
Yeah.
and it all works out.
Exactly.
It's not
Yeah.
like a big
And
deal. Phyllis knows that after I had a long time with Penn, and he was starting to work with other hairdressers like Orlando and Julianne, and it was fine.
yeah.
Because we were smart enough to know that if we were in that studio, we wore that hat.
Yes. That's
And
what
we
I want to ask.
respected- We
Yes.
knew where we
Yes.
were.
Yeah. Okay. So looking at these three very different photographers, Penn, Avedon, and Mizell, how did you adapt your approach to match their visions while still keeping your own artistic voice? Christian and Julianne both said they had to put on the photographer's hat before they could start, that Peter's hair or Paolo's hair or Penn's hair had its own personality. So exactly what you said.
It. I knew exactly what Avedon wanted. I knew what he expected. I knew exactly what Mr. Penn wanted. And I went in full on. If it was a haircut story, it was definitely a haircut story. It wasn't like yin and yang. It was definitely there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, when I went to Mizell, it was memories of some of the lighting that Avedon might have used, like way back. But Stephen had such a history in his head of old magazines. This is the way I grew up, is that I visualized everything I saw and kept it in a bank up here. Stephen had that. And it was like we would bring out old books and we would look. And when back then, Tawny would have, and Paul would have tear sheets of old magazines and put the folder together and say, here's what we were thinking. But it doesn't end up coming out like that. It's just, it's a little bit of a nod. It could be the way the hand went. It could be the gesture and the laughter of the girl.
Yes,
but
that's a real appreciation of the history and of fashion.
And knowing it. And now we get up to, you know, Matt and Marcus are very much like that. And so Stephen Klein has got a dialogue. We have a dialogue. I know exactly what I need to pack. I know exactly what I have to pull out of the box because Stephen Klein, it could all look good, but what is looking the craziest or off point is basically where I'm going with Klein.
Right.
You follow?
Yes.
It's like a lot of the pictures in his book were created because it needed a certain angst or a certain thing that registered as a Klein picture. It's like when you look through Vogue back in the day, you wouldn't even have to look at the credit. You would know a Mizell picture, you'd know a Klein picture,
absolutely.
and you know a Klein picture.
Yep.
You definitely knew those three.
Yes.
You were a little confused when Matt and Marcus came into the game because they were copying all of them.
Yes. Between Mizell and Klein. Sometimes I think.
Yeah. It was like,
you
know, like, and so that's the hat I would use when I went to Matt and Marcus because I was like, well, today might flip. It might flip. It's going Cuckoo Bird, going to be Ultra Beauty, but they aren't saying it. But I know what their references are Mizell.
Right.
Their references are Mizell and Klein.
Right.
There is nobody else that they're referencing.
Right. It feels like on Penn, Mizell, Klein, not only did they have a different, you knew the formula for what the hair had to do with each, they expected you to know, and you already knew, so there probably didn't have to be that much discussion.
It's not really a verbal discussion. It's more of an action. Like if I see that they are looking through the lens and they see what they like and what they don't like. With Stephen Mizell, there would be a little smirk on his face, and I could catch that. But if he was wondering what could be better, because he does see what doesn't work immediately like I do, but we don't talk about it. I mean, we sat there later and spoke about it, but it was like, I get it. And then I would go in and do something and he would say, stop. And then the girl would take over and they'd have this dialogue. The same with Avedon. I mean, it was a dialogue between him and the model, him and the actress. Penn was the same way. It seems like the great ones always had a wonderful dialogue without speaking, just by whether the photographer dropped his shoulder or like Klein likes a certain stance. And once the girl locks into his character or his girl, it's got strength. And they nail it. And that's the good girls. With Mizell, that's definitely a formula. But also when they were awkward, like the first time in, he would embrace that and get an amazing portfolio.
Can the girl compensate for hair? Like if the girl does something, but the hair wasn't exactly what he imagined, it didn't matter because the girl
the mistake would make the picture. In other words, when you're doing hair on the set, you're not constantly trying to keep it the same way because it's impossible.
Right.
Makeup can stay the same.
Right.
Hair moves. It's fluid. It flops. It does what it's going to do. And then you need to grab your product or whatever you're going to use to anx it or to explode it or to bring it down or to do something to it. And a good photographer will keep his eye on the ball, like while it's all happening. A photographer that walks away from the camera when hair and makeup's being adjusted, I find have less creative ability than someone that's present. That's what I think is missing today. When you're working with those masters, they're continually watching 24/7 about what the team is doing.
I can remember so many shoots that I did with you and Mizell and Pat. So this is the first one I did was the July 2007 Cape Blanchett. It was meant to be September, and Tani and I can't remember. I know she was in all black, and it got moved to July because she was in all black. But Tani and I were like, but Anna would have seen the rack of all black. And then Charlize, I was on the reshoot, not the original.
The original was a disaster.
Yeah, October 2000, reshot by Herb.
And because Stephen, she was modeling.
Yeah, because she was a catalog model.
She was modeling.
Yeah.
So Stephen was like, I can't. And Charlize and I got on very well. So I just said, honey, just go with it. Like, don't, but it's the way things happen. We did so many that it was like a blur.
Yeah, because then after
then you came to Sandra Bullock's, right?
Sandra Bullock, January 2003. Then we had Sarah Jessica Parker, August 2003, when her firstborn was a baby.
Right. Stephen wasn't having it with her at all.
Yeah, something happened.
We were doing kind of like, we were doing like sergeant looks.
Yes. Like, different looks though.
Oh,
you had her in that beret. I mean.
Yeah, but it was it was great. And then we wet her hair down for the cover.
Yeah. Which was that cover?
She's standing at the doorway with I think it's netty kind of corset underneath with a net going over the top. It was kind of like a icy blue, I think.
Oh no, it was this pink one, but yeah, you got the hair right.
It's wet. Yes.
you
Yeah.
got
It
the
was
hair right.
Yeah.
I mean,
I remember like she goes, "What? You're gonna wet my hair?" And I was
It
like,
looks
"Yeah, that's
stunning.
what he wants."
and you said in the doorway. Oh my God. And then we had Jen Aniston, who we had so much fun on
That
that
was
show,
but that was
the
a
cover.
real clusterfuck
The
because
inside was so beautiful. The Prada, the
the
brown,
cover was
with
ugly.
the wet
I
hair.
hate it. Would not let him direct her. She was confused because he made me do her hair real slick like a little boy first. Do you remember that?
But I
With
love
that
that
black and white picture?
Yes.
Like a
Oh
little
my God, I
boy?
love that with the tuxedo and holding
yes,
like the top hat.
Yes. And she was upset because all the cushioning I did in her hair was gone. And now they had to do the cover after that. So in her mind was thinking her hair wasn't going to be big enough the way she likes it.
Oh.
And he kept telling her, "Don't worry about it. Get over it." You know?
So
Just
is that
felt-
why she's doing that? But the
Yeah.
inside is
the inside's amazing.
I mean, hello.
Yes.
Love
Highly.
this picture.
Well, that's the one she hated while it was being done. She
And
didn't
I love
understand.
this.
No, that they're brilliant. They're brilliant.
Then we had the brilliant, my favorite, the top 5 ever, Gwen Stefani, April 2004 with Mizell.
Oh yeah, she cried on that.
Oh, out
She
of
cried
happiness?
because because the minute she got ready and got in front of the camera, the tears.
Oh.
And I go, "What's wrong, honey?" She says, "I can't believe I have you, Pat.
Yes,
and
yes.
Steven is shooting
Yes.
me for a cover."
She understood it. I'm getting chills. She understood it.
She says, I can't, I'm pinching, and she came
Yeah.
by herself that
Yes,
morning.
she did. Yep.
She was early, very early.
Yep.
And then we came, and I hit my head on the tree, and my head was all bloody. Do you remember that?
I think.
And you're going out, do I call 911? And and Stephen goes, "No, he'll be fine." But that was a beautiful cover.
I'm so glad Anna chose that. It wasn't a credit, but it was so much better than the turquoise silk slip dress. And then we had Sandra Bullock, March 2005. And then the next one was, again, Sandra Bullock. These are just the celebrities. Sandra, October 2006, when the World Cup was happening. So I remember being in the motorhome watching that. Then Drew Barrymore, March 2008, where she never looked better. And then were you on the Zhang Zi, the Chinese actress?
Yes.
When they were shooting from above, remember?
That was like, what the fuck is happening?
And Anna killed it because she thought it looked like S&M. And I was like, because she had ribbons, so they were shooting.
Yeah, but we were on a light box, and she was laying on the light box.
Yes, and I was like, S&M.
It doesn't look like S&M. It just was like insane.
Yeah.
She was so beautiful.
And that was the last.
That was the last one with Steven, I think.
Yeah, it still ran inside. I found it, and that was August 2008. And then it wasn't until
then I moved over to. Then I went to Klein.
It's like looking back. Why would we put Renee Zellweger with Klein or Julianne Moore with Klein? Or they were never the right. The people.
Zellweger with Mizell was brilliant.
Yes, and with Herb.
Yeah. But
that
one in the
cover.
evening gown standing in because her agent said, "This is your moment, honey.
Yes.
Give them what they want. Don't."
No, all those actresses that first cover, Gwyneth with Steven and Cameron with Steven and Paul Kabako.
So many times with Steven that we had a thing going on about how her attention span would just get like she'd be so tired after a while.
Right.
That Paul would be running around her with a beeper and a farter, trying to get her to jump around. But these girls, like when they would see me on the street, they would say, "Hey, Garren," like they didn't have bodyguards, these girls.
I know.
Now we're in the world of
it's
so unnecessary. I find that hairdressers don't have history anymore.
No. Well, let's get into the looking back. So here you are, 50 years in, still working.
It's over 50, believe it or not. but
over 1,000 covers. Penn, Avedon, Mizell, Patrick, Arthur, Farah, Linda, Madonna, Victoria, Carly. But this journey hasn't just been about what you learned, it's about what you passed on. You've said, I've always liked being a mentor, coaching, and helping young talent. And yet you've watched the industry change. Quote, many of today's hairstylists don't have any hair history. They're all mini celebrities and they don't know past when they were born. So through R&Co, we're out there trying to teach them hair history. Where did you get that idea? Where are the ideas coming from? That frustration echoes what other guests have told me. Gabby Creefa Johnson said there isn't so much reverence for apprenticeship anymore. If you have a platform, you can make your own future. So there isn't a ton of interest in learning and figuring out all the rules. You've said the same. I do wish some would take their craft more seriously and study and practice more instead of trying to be YouTube or Instagram hair celebrities. It's a challenge to restructure hair with tools, to restructure a look with the way you style or cut hair. It's kind of a lost art. But you've also shown what mentorship looks like in practice. When Gucci Westman was on, she told me a story she still uses as a teaching moment. It was Madonna's Vanity Fair cover, shot by Mizell. Madonna was being difficult, restless, dismissive. Gucci was new. Madonna didn't know her. You walked over, looked in the mirror and said, she's getting you really good. Just sit still. Madonna listened. She told me, I'm forever grateful to Garren because of that old school sort of mentality that the only way we can succeed here is if our team succeeds, all of us, hair, makeup, styling, photography. And it's just knowing that we all have to do this together. And there are moments when I've worked with other teams and they don't have that mentality. And it's just such a bummer because it's never as good. I mean, it's crazy. That was an old school mentality.
Well, I would say it's because the way I was groomed and the way I was brought up. And I've learned a lot from all the photographers that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if they put a hat on her or they wet the hair down or they scrape it back. It's all for the picture and the image. And that it goes back to the way I've always saw things.
Right.
Like I see what doesn't work and it makes me crazy and I'll focus on it. I would go over to Francois sometimes and say, the eyelash in the center isn't clicked down. You got to get it down. I know Stephen will fix it, but what happens if it isn't fixed?
Right.
So, and I would look at something that Kevin would have done or Pat would do, and the makeup was just so grand. And I would just say, the hair has to be, I have to step back. I have to soften it. I have to disrupt it. I have to make it not as important. It will be important for the picture, but it's not a big deal.
Right.
It's like so many editors in the past, even Tawny, and up to today, Tawny, if I would go in and I'm fixing the hair and the collar or the something falls, I would look at Tawny and she'd go, yeah, just adjust it. Like,
that's when you say it was always for the picture. It was always for the picture, not
I'd slim it down. I'd go, Tawny, is the sleeve look too thick or is it supposed to look like that?
Because you're seeing the whole thing.
She's going, let's see how it photographs first. And then she'd go in and she'd say, it's in her head. She sees it. She's got history.
Yeah.
Tawny's got so much history. Phyllis has got history. Phyllis lets it play out different. They all let it play out different.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of photographers that I tried working with that I didn't click with because they are more contemporary in the way they think. And I don't know how to say it, but it's like when I work with someone that's a British photographer and they're used to using their team, and I'm forced into that situation through the editor or the celebrity, then I know that I'm on the back burner of getting their stamp of approval. I always try not to be too grand or to be me. I try to fall back so they don't feel I'm taking over. But there's so many times that I see things that could be so much better
Right.
and lit better.
And you have more
that
history, and
I
you've
have to
done,
hold
yeah,
back
yeah,
because
yeah,
then they have to find their way.
yeah.
But then my little tricks sometimes, and I learned this from myself, is when I'm next to the model to say, your light is going to the left. So just remember when you leap forward, you must hit the light because the person in front of you is blocking your light. But it's like when you work with certain photographers, they're so gun-ho on one person in the group that they forget about the others. And Mizell would say to me sometimes, tell Linda that it's on the third mark that she needs to be. And Linda would absolutely know. I would just say, Stephen just said third mark. And she go, got it.
I mean, Paul Cavaco talked about Linda and how she could fall, and David Sims could see his girl in her. Like she.
Carly Kloss is the same way. They know who they're working for and who they have to be.
Yeah.
If she's a Sims girl, she's got to be jumping and moving.
Yes.
If she's with Mizell, she's a certain woman. With Klein, she's a character.
Yeah.
That's a good model.
Yes.
And that's not good when you're working with celebrity because they don't. I have to say, the Kardashians do listen and they're always on time.
They appreciate it.
I've done many covers with them, first covers.
Yeah.
Some with Klein, some with Matt and Marcus, and some with Steven, some with Tom and Monroe. But they know what their job is.
Yes.
And I remember my first time with Kim. She was so early and I was running late because I was stuck in traffic. And Paul's calling, where are you? And I'm like, I'm stuck on that corner. He says, she's been here. And I go, well, it's not 9 o'clock yet. And he's going, okay. I don't know what to talk about. I go, I don't know either.
Selena's the same way. Early takes it
as great.
Yeah, they feel honored. Yeah.
It's the other ones. It's mediocre.
I wanted to ask about the passing it on and this mentoring within the hair industry. Do you feel the industry has lost the nurturing side, or does the new generation just not have the respect? I haven't heard about these relationships until I spoke with Orlando, Christian, Julian, and you.
Okay. So here's the deal. Like when we were rising up, my way in was Christian, but it was a friendship and a respect. Yeah. The rest I did on my own. I never assisted anyone. I didn't know, but I knew what I needed in an assistant. So by me having a salon, the Plaza or Bendel's or the Sherry Netherlands, I was able to select hairdressers within the salon that I would use as assistants for 2 years, 3 years, and hone them to know what I'm doing and explain what they had to do, prepare wigs, prepare falls, all that kind of stuff. Now, since I don't have the salon anymore, it's very difficult for me to find an assistant that has a background because they are there only for that moment to say on their resume that I worked with Garren.
Yeah.
I know that. Yeah. It's really difficult because their attention span isn't there. The assistant that's with me now, it takes time and I'm still trying to zone him in, but he also works for Orlando and different hairdressers. But the point being is that he only is comfortable doing what he wants to do, but he thinks he knows how to do everything. And I would like to knock him on the head and say, hello, you haven't done boot camp. You might have done it in Chicago, but you haven't done it in New York. And by assisting different artists, you should be able to pull in each. This is what I tell them. You're with the best. Yeah. So now pull in when you're with them. I would be on the set for 18 hours and my assistant is 30 years younger than me and they're complaining. I'm like, hello, get a grip, man. Yeah. You're 20 years old.
And you should love it. This is
but they think that their world is what it is and what is on TikTok and what is Like I'll use this as an example. Like I'll see Sabrina Carpenter and I'll see her when she's on the red carpet. Her
Yeah.
hair never looks great. It always looks like
Is it real? I don't even think it's real.
well, it just looks like a hiccup.
Yeah.
It looks like someone tried to do a Farrah look on
Yes.
her.
Yes. Yeah.
Or a Christy Brinkley, or someone,
Right.
maybe Claudia Schiffer or whatever.
Yes.
But it never lands.
Right.
But then when Mizell and Guido and Pat do her, it lands. And she should see the difference.
Yes.
Because the important part of her life nowadays is not the magazine, it's the red carpet.
Which it was that moment. That's the problem.
And you see young kids loving that hair, but loving it badly.
Right.
Where if you embrace the 90s hair, embrace it with beauty and luxury.
Yes.
And that's how I teach when I do my seminars around the country for Arnco Blue.
Yes.
My slideshow is a lot of covers. It goes in decades.
Yeah.
And how it changes, how the girl is the same girl, but she's morphed. And it's because of hair and makeup and photography.
Yes.
And the fashion. So I've got this thing where I have a whole thing on Scarlett Johansson and how many, like, which is a wig, which isn't.
Right.
And they're like, well, you know, and I'll go, no, that's a wig. That's her hair.
Oh my
that's a wig."
God.
Like Katy Perry, the most beautiful picture we ever did with Katy Perry was for her interview, I think it was. And it was with Gucci. And I told Gucci, we got to tape her up. She came in with black roots and pink hair. She was late. She was sick. And we made her look like Sophia Loren. And Gucci goes, I can't believe we did this. And I was just like, we did it, honey.
Yeah.
Because everything fell into place.
Right.
But
and
it was
she's open
it was
too.
teamwork. It was
she's
teamwork.
another one that's open to being, she gets it. So let's go to, okay, so Penn taught you professional courtesy. He was a perfect gentleman.
It was perfection.
Yeah.
It was not courtesy. It was dynamically art.
Perfect
It was
gentleman.
still lifes. It wasn't about emotion. It was more about the shape and the quality of the fabric of all of that. Because you know if it's glitter, you know if it's sequins, you know if it's beaded,
Right.
you know because the light is so crisp. And so there's always something that sometimes you have to scratch your head and go, why does he want such a black lip? But there's a reason, because he wants that to have more ink, more guts. And it's his picture. It is his picture.
Right. You've said, I've learned how to collaborate. It's one of the biggest things I've learned and one of the biggest things I've always been inspired by. That Gucci Westman story wasn't about you teaching teamwork. It was about you demonstrating it. The way you diffused the tension with Madonna showed what true leadership looks like on set. Calm, collaborative, and ego-free. Reflecting on Polly Mellon's advice, we live with our memories and we move forward. You've said your takeaway has been to keep building, even through disappointment. You have to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep going at it. Being present for others, you've said, is what the journey is all about. So you learned professional courtesy amongst many other things from Penn, resilience from Polly, and you've modeled collaboration your entire career. What would you tell that 13-year-old in Niagara Falls, the one coloring his mother's hair and doing all the neighborhood bouffants?
I call them museum talks to the Arnco, where they get a group of 100 hairdressers together, and I go through my history. And I've been reflecting back on how lucky I have been. I know that when I first moved to New York, that's not generally how it happens, that you walk into all of a sudden being on the top. And if I didn't love my work as much as I did, I mean, there was nights in Paris that I would be washing falls in the tub because we were doing a big shoot and I needed to refresh everything. But hard work does pay off. And to know that I was respected by all these photographers, editors, all the people involved, We respect each other and are still striving to be more. But it feels a little sad now that when you look at Vogue, it doesn't offer any. I don't think a hairdresser will look at Vogue and go, I want to be a hairdresser because they get to do this. Yeah. I don't think a makeup artist is going to look at Vogue and say, I want to be a makeup artist because I see this.
Right.
There is nothing there happening.
Right.
And it's because we leaned into this.
Yeah.
And everything is AI corrected. Everything is morphed. So I'm pretty sad that there is no little kid that comes from a little town that can move to a big city to become anything, because our fashion that we all looked up to has disappeared.
Yeah.
Even when you look at the clothes on the runway, the hair is definitely not involved.
Right.
It is a wash away. It's because everyone's got long hair. There's no statements being made. There's no holding on to a thought longer than 60 minutes. And I just feel sad for, yes, makeup is a little easier to showcase on TikTok and YouTube because you can copy the look. But hair, you're like a surgeon. You are creating a look that gives the woman the power that she could have, or she could be dismissive. Like Selena Gomez's hair always looks on point.
Yeah.
She learned from the beginning that it was important.
Yeah. So no gossip is your tip for lasting this long, but what's the real secret behind over 50 years at the top, and what do you want your legacy to be?
Well, I just hope there's a legacy because of where we're going in the world of AI and the internet and everything else, that I hope that some young kids would grab onto the past to want to know who the greats were, because I'm out there stomping my voice saying there was John Sahag. It wasn't Sally Hershberger. There was a Suga. It wasn't Kenneth. They didn't even know who Kenneth is. They don't even know who Sahag was. They kind of know who Christian was, but now that's leaving. So I really hope that somehow, some way, someone's smart enough in our world to be able to keep us alive and going, so that one of the generations coming up will want to get nosy to feel what to do. Because it's not just painting your face on and sticking on the extensions and walking down the street. There's reasons why hair has always been important in a person's life. And you have to figure out what your goal is and what you're going to do. And now that people work from home, no one cares about how they look. That's going away. Like, I'm so lucky that I was brought up in the world of glamour, meaning the 60s and the 50s and then moving into the rock and the club world and disco, and then moving out of that and moving into the grandness of the couture and the supermodels and nailing all that and being part of it, and then moving forward and keep moving forward. I'm still happy to share my experience, but I only want to share it with the people that want to listen. I don't want to waste my time with people that think they know too much or they're too busy on their phones. Because life is short, and I've had a long career, and I still have the energy to do it. I just want the respect and knowing that all of us went through so much hard work. Long hours and situations that were almost impossible. Picture always wins.
No. And your story, I mean, I hope everyone listening passes it on, because it's fascinating what you've done. We started with your quote, knowing the right time and place to do something new. From that basement in Niagara Falls to the pages of Vogue, you've always known the moment to straighten Farrah's hair, the moment to give Victoria that pixie, the moment to say yes to Mizell, the moment to move on. From that basement salon to Bergdorf Goodman, from Farrah's transformation to Linda's reinventions, from Penn Studio to Mizell sets, you didn't just style hair, you created moments. You transformed people. You helped define what fashion magazines looked like for 5 decades. As you once said, Polly Mellon once said to me, we live with our memories and we move forward. I've learned to use everything I've learned to keep building. You have to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep going at it. Being present for others is what the journey is all about. So I thank you for sharing your story with all of us.
I haven't lost my mind yet.
Oh, you remember everything.
But my whole life has been like that.
I needed all these papers.
Thank you so much.
I
Jill.
really appreciate it.
care.
Okay, we'll talk soon.
Hope I see you at Stevens.
Yes, you will. Yes. Okay.
Thank
Bye. Okay, that's our show. Thanks for listening to Going Rogue. And be sure to like and subscribe. Today's show is produced by me and Maddie Rosenberg at Radio Free Rhinecliff with assistance from Maddie Kelly. Special thanks to David Vo for our great graphics and Taras Romanov for our epic theme music. See you next Friday.